Welcome, Palm Springs Film Society members. My name is Lily Rodriguez. I'm the artistic director, and thank you so much for sticking around for the post-screening conversation of La Llorona, which is Guatemala's official submission to the Academy Awards for the Best International Feature Film category. We'd like to give a big thank you to Shutter for bringing the film to us. We have today in conversation director Jayro Bustamante, who was in Palm Springs a few years ago with his film Ishkanul, and we're so glad to get to talk to him again. And the conversation is moderated by Palm Springs Film Festival Hebe Tabachnik. Thank you so much and enjoy.
Hello, Jayro Bustamante. Welcome to the Palm Springs Film Society and the Q&A for the your beautiful film, La Llorona, the Weeping Woman. Hello, Jayro. Where are you from now? You know, where are we connecting you from?
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. It's so strange because normally I really enjoy being in Palm Springs and present the film, and I have a lot of very good souvenirs about my last time in Palm Springs. But right now I'm in Guatemala. I spent the quarantine here. Normally I used to live between Guatemala and Paris, but we start working a lot in Guatemala because, you know, in Guatemala we have 24 languages. 23 of them are Mayans, and communication coming from the state is only in Spanish. So there is a lot of people who are a little bit lost about the pandemic because they don't have the information. So we are working with my foundation to give them the same information that we have, but in their own language, and it's working very well, and we are very, very proud about that because that permits us, even in that reality, that permits us to be close to the people.
Wow, congratulations and thank you for doing that. And we're going to touch into the languages in a minute. I just want to mention that, and since we can see the Ishkanul poster on your background, that you visited Palm Springs with the film. The film was also the entry from Guatemala then, and now La Llorona is the entry from Guatemala. This is your third film. And I have the pleasure of being programming and seeing your films from the beginning. And it's a striking the depth, the sort of spirituality, and at the same time you delve into really tough issues. And I'd like to touch a little bit because I think for some of the people who have just watched La Llorona, and they might have seen your previous films, Ishkanul and Tremors, Temblores, if you can tell us a little bit about the connection between these three triptych that you made in 2015, 2017, and now with La Llorona. Why you decided to do this 3 films, and why La Llorona now is the third film.
I was living in Paris at that time, and I was started to make features because I was made only short films, and the question came, and I was in front to that situation about the fact that continue doing films in Paris and living that beautiful life that Paris can offer you, or come to Guatemala and make films in a country without industry, without any possibilities, without financing, nothing. And I have a very good partner in my company, who's my mother, and she told me, come back to Guatemala, your film will be more relevant here than in Paris. And so I come back to Guatemala, and I started making a research about the problematics that I wanted to talk. And I discovered that in Guatemala is a very, very country because we build our society on discrimination. Discrimination for us is a lifestyle. And so I start to thinking about why we continue attacking ourselves. And I discovered that we are using all the time 3 insults. And that insults are very, very important and very hard. And the first one is Indio, who means indigenous people. And when you know that in Guatemala, 80% of the people are Mayans, you are insulting 80% of your own people. And you are insulting them because you are not proud about our own origins. So, and the second insult is homosexual, hueco in Guatemala, who means hole. You know, it's very strange. And it's not an homophobic insult only. When you say homosexual in Guatemala, you are saying, you are pretending that the man, because it's used only for men, you are pretending that the man who is homosexual decide to be a little bit more feminine. And being feminine, you are losing your power. Wow. So with that insult, you are attacking all the women.
Wow.
And the third insult is communist. And communist is nothing to do today with the political ideology. Communist it was using from the 15 coming from the USA to Guatemala to insult all the people who were against the state. And that's still bad. But today they are not political. They are people who are defending human rights. And when you understand that in my country, defend human rights deserve an insult, you can understand why we lived a genocide. And so that is my triptych. And I hope really make a happy film in a moment. But I come from that country and I have to talk about the things that to me are relevant because people here are all the time trying to silence you and trying to silence our history. And it's happened a very, very strange things because when we start making La Llorona, even, I don't know what you say in English, la Ministra de Relaciones Exteriores.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Exactly. She tried to stop the shooting. And they wanted to silence me making that film. I received a lot of threats, a lot of menaces, and the French ambassador, the Mexican ambassador, and the university, la Universidad Jesuita.
Yeah, the Jesuit university. Yeah.
Yeah, they protect us and they give us locations and they give us that kind of neutral territories to work. And after that, we didn't have any support in the country to release the film. And right now, when the Guatemalan Academy proposes to represent the film in the Oscar, people start talking about that, even the state, and they are very pro. They don't want to talk about the thematic that the films present, but they want to talk about the glamour that the Oscar represents. And it's so funny because that is movies, you know, that is the magical of movies.
That's of course the contradictions of the people in power that we see so often, because of course they don't want to talk about the issues that are touching and La Llorona, but of course they want, like you said, the glamour. And going into just, you know, getting now into La Llorona. La Llorona touches on the genocide, but you decided, you know, sort of departing from your previous films to get into sort of genre film. So how that idea, you know, came about? Why you took that leap of not only faith, but just decided to move into a different type of genre, and at the same time touch such a heartbreaking, an open wound that Guatemala has with its history and its people.
As you know, because for people who don't know us, we know from the very beginning of my career, and Hebe was there to support me. So I'm more a storytelling than a filmmaker, or I consider myself more a storytelling than a filmmaker. And so I'm not a purista.
A purist.
I really want to tell stories, and I wanted to talk about the genocide, knowing that my local audience don't want to talk about that and don't want to watch a film about that. So I decided to pack the message in a appealing package, and I made a research about the local audience, and I discovered that in Guatemala, 85% of the people, 95% of the people are watching superhero films and horror films. So I started looking for a horror superhero. And for us, La Llorona is a kind of La Virgen de Guadalupe. She is so important. And so I decided to use La Llorona because in my mind, Guatemala is a kind of a motherland who want to stop crying their disappeared people. So it was so easy to arrive to La Llorona. And when I decided to use La Llorona to tell that story, it was so nice because I could not only use La Llorona, but I could change a little bit the myth. Because La Llorona, in deep, is a very, very misogynistic legend. It's a woman who is weeping because a man quit her. And she arrived to kill his child, because a man quit her. And it's very famous. We really love her. So I decided to say maybe La Llorona can cry because the more relevant things that as a man, and maybe she can cry because the suffering of a people. And I'm very happy about our Llorona, and I was Maria Mercedes in my mind, and Maria Mercedes Coro is a perfect Llorona for that. And she presented me her grandma, and her grandma told me about how she lives between the conflict in Guatemala, the war in Guatemala. And she told me, I learned to cry in silence. And Maria Mercedes told me, I want to cry very, very high to be listened about all the people in that world. And so to me, it was so important that sentence, and Maria Mercedes was the perfect one.
And it's interesting what you're saying, because I love this idea that you package this sort of peel, so people can swallow it, enjoy it, and at the same time, you have, you lay out this story of genocide. But the other thing that is very interesting about La Llorona is the point of view, in a way, because most of the times the films will sort of focus more on like the victims, but your camera and your focus was in this evil house and evil, character. And I think it made it even more powerful in that respect, because you're kind of, sequestered in that house with them, and you start feeling with them. And that, I think it's something that, while I was watching again the film, you actually feel, the spirit surroundings, and you in a way you go, like, you empathize, but then you start seeing with with them what's going on. And in a way, you are making people go through that journey, because that's the difficult thing, to understand the horror from that perspective. And we can go into a little bit more of the characters that you chose to depict here, because you have these 3 generations with the grandmother, the daughter, and Natalia, and the granddaughter. Tell us a little bit about more that, the setup, and the decision, this very powerful decision of making it also a claustrophobic film. You are just there, and the outside is sound most of the time.
I had the opportunity in a moment to work as a professor in the Sorbonne University in Paris, and I was talking with my audience, and we were talking about the genocide in Latin America and about the dictators in Latin America. And one student asked me or told me, he told me, it's like if they came from the same university to be dictator. And I told them, is that there is a university in USA called the American School, and all the dictators come from them, and they learned them to be dictators in Latin America.
The School of the Americas, which were used by basically all of the high-ranking officials in all the military men. For the people who don't know, they will be, invited to go there and study there, and most of the techniques they've been using for, 40 years have, emanated from, unfortunately, that very awful school.
So, when I create my characters in that film, I really created characters thinking about all the dictators in Latin America. I didn't want to talk about our own dictator or his family, because I really don't think that they deserve a film. But I think dictator as a topic is a very important thing, because they are living saying that they are not guilt. They are heroes. They save our countries. They protect our people, even if they kill the half. And so, and they, a part of them die saying we are heroes. And I'm sure that at night, they feel guilty. And I'm sure that at night they have problems to sleep. So I wanted to be there, and I wanted to be inside the evil house, and I wanted to live that guilty with them, and I wanted to understand what kind of weapon they use to defend their acts. And I wanted to understand how the family around them live that. Mm. And so I decided to be with them inside, and I decided to invite the evil. It was very important to me too to use La Llorona as, La Llorona, it was, to me, is my own opinion, but to me, La Llorona was so bad represented in movies. She's a kind of a monster.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say, and normally La Llorona was a Mayan princess. So I wanted to say, or an Indian princess, I mean an indigenous princess. So I wanted to say, maybe La Llorona can be a kind of a Dracula. Kind of elegant character, having that power that she doesn't need to do anything because people do things for her. So I decided to start the film with that women praying and inviting a spirit to come and possess them. And can be good, or can be La Llorona, who is another kind of goddess. And so that was the decision, and the film. We made the film with a very, very small budget, and
it doesn't look like, but
Thank you.
Money well spent.
Yeah, we can do that in Guatemala. We are really master of that. But
I'm going to just say one thing that I remember when we crossed paths at San Sebastian one day, and you said, I'm gonna do films that are, you know, like not cheaper, but I want to have all control. I'm tired of asking, you know, money and begging and begging. I'm gonna make films no matter what. And I'm, you know, this and you know, after that, I think you just came out with 2 films, you know, Tremors and La Llorona. I'm just, you know, I remember that conversation because I thought, oh my God, you know, you are absolutely taking, you know, the power of storytelling in your hands, and you're, you know, nobody's gonna stop you. Anyway, sorry for the interruption, but
no, thank you. It's very important to me. So, and that kind of decisions pushed me to be a little bit more creative, because when you don't have money and you don't have industry, all that you have is creativity and time. So I'm trying to spend my time in a good way, and the fact to be close in that house, the first thing that I think about that film was how can I represent a whole country, a whole Maya community suffering about the genocide with my budget. And I said, I have to do that by the sound. So I have to have the camera close into a place to leave the sound be free coming from the outside. And so right now I really can't say which was the decision to be inside that house, but it was a lot of reason to close me in that space.
You know, from the standing point of a production design, it's brilliant because, like you said, in that house, you also have a microcosmos of the Guatemalan society. And going back into the characters you have, you know, because you have the 3 generations, but you also have Valeriana, who represents a very, you know, not only special character, but also, you know, a very key figure in your creative process throughout all the films, because she's been, the actress has been in all of them. And it's a complicated character because she's, you know, been working there forever. She knows who these people are, and she has to sort of play alliance to them, even though she knows, you know, for sure that they are, you know, evil. But then you have, you know, like Natalia, who is starting to doubt, and then you have the young kid who is, you know, starting to ask questions. So could you tell us a little bit more about that, you know, microcosmos that you have, and of course the coming of the character of Maria Mercedes, who, you know, like you said, almost ghostly, you know, and you know, she has such a powerful presence, and just by being there, you know that something is happening. But you know, I like, you know, to know a little bit more about that, you know, how you decided, you know, to put all of them, and the work you did with the different actors, because again, I think in the case of both Natalia and Valeriana, they are very tough, very, very tough characters to play, because they are like on, you know, very thin eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, you know, in Guatemala, as I said, the industry of film doesn't exist really. We are some people working, and we are more like artisans than like professionals. And we're doing that very professional, but we are more like an artisan. So
in Argentina, we say "lo atamos con alambre." We made it with a little bit of little wire. You know, we can do whatever.
Exactly. And so there is not movie actors in the country. We cannot make a casting with actors. We have to make a casting with talents. So when I start working on movies, I start working on prepare actors at the same time. And I'm doing a lot of formation for them. And I really enjoyed that time because it served me a lot to write too, because actors are kind of that bomb of creativity. So my work with the actors was, for the beginning, I started working with them with a method using the El Teatro del Oprimido at the beginning.
The oppressed, the theater of the oppressed.
And one time when they know that, I start working on the voice and on the body. And after that, I use Stanislavski method. And so when they arrive to my films, they really know that they have to do, and they really be, because we use the film to that in that process. So in a moment we are in a very very symbiosis with actors. So they are my support. They are my family in that time. And
did they have input? Like, did Mercedes and the character of Natalia, did they have input? How much do you go back and forth with them in building their characters and the truth of their characters?
Yeah, for sure. And I rewrite the script with them in a moment. I really don't. I have to work with a script because I am a storyteller, so I don't want to arrive with the camera and think that the camera will make the magic. I think the story have to be there before, and we start thinking about the fact that in Guatemala there is four kind of different people. So one is that generation who, to me, they are condenados.
They're condemned.
They are condemned because they continue thinking that indigenous people are inferior. So they are not living with anything or without empathy. They are really thinking that indigenous people deserve all that kind of discrimination. And I represent them by Carmen and Enrique. And for that people, if you are not a kind of a divinity, and if you don't came to their own soul, and if you don't make them live that you lived, they never will understand. After that, it's my generation, who is a generation coming from the world, and a generation who understand what is happening, and a generation who want to know how really happened in Guatemala with indigenous people, but we are so afraid because they can kill us even today.
Because we have to say, you were a young child, at the time of the genocide, and that's the other thing. I mean, this is a generation that maybe have heard, when you're a kid and you don't really know what's going on, but it's there. There is something, something is starting to question what's going on. And I think that's,
people who made the genocide in Guatemala still in the power today.
Of course.
So it's very complicated. And so that my generation is a generation who want to know, but maybe we can live without that information because it's too dangerous to have that information. So, and after that, there is the new generation. And maybe I'm just dreaming, or maybe I'm putting a lot of responsibilities on the new generation, but I can see that they are living with less discrimination. They are accepting all the diversity that we have, and they are being a little bit more proud about that. And maybe they will become conservators in the future, but right now they don't have any to conserve. So right now they are free, and I really think that new generation can change that. And the kind of it's not a generation, but it's another group who is the indigenous people who are discriminated, who serve the mixed people or the white people, and they want to serve them being paid as a slave. They want to say thank you, and they are forced to love them. And that is a very complicated way to live. And I can imagine how kind of psychological problematics we will live in the future, because it's not just a people, it's a person, it's a whole country living like that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to represent that.
It's a community, and you show it very well, because, you know, of course, when the film starts, there is like 6 or 7 people helping in the house. So you understand that, you know, they have this sort of army of people just for basically, normally in the house lives only a couple, and you see the disparity, which is, you know, seen in many other, unfortunately, many other Latin American countries, but of course it's even more acute in, I think, in Central America, or in you know, it's in Guatemala and you know, El Salvador. I mean, it's a reality, and that's the thing again with the character Valeriana, which, you know, we know that maybe there is other sort of hidden truth about you know, her history, but she embodies that sort of servitude that unfortunately we see, and in so many cases it's in Mexico, it's in you know, you see it in Chile, you see it in Peru, you see it in Bolivia. You know, I have so many questions and so many things that I want you to talk about, but I know we don't have a lot of time. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, you know, this transformation that you see on camera, you know, how they're switching almost bodies between the new maid and Carmen, and, you know, this long hair, the old, the new, this, all this beautiful. And I told you this when the first time I saw the film, and again, this hair that it becomes wind and it becomes water. There are so many incredible visually powerful scenes in the film, and the contrast, or not the contrast, but that they are nurtured also with all this sound world. And in that respect, this is a film that really takes advantage of, you know, the soundtrack. Can you tell us a little bit about the work you did? You know, I don't know, the conversations you have with your DP, what inspirations you have, and the sound work that you did, and you know, how hard or what ideas did you have, etc.
It was, you know, when we started working on the image of the film, we had for sure a lot of movies references, but we put that in a kind of closet, and we started looking for painting references.
Oh, interesting.
Because we wanted to come back to talk a little bit about our
heritage,
Spanish heritage, and one of the part of that discrimination comes from that. And so we came to look for that kind of a Baroque painting in Spanish, and to try to use that black and light images because I didn't want to make a horror film just at night and with black scenes. I wanted to have a horror even in day with a lot of light. And Spanish can do that. They can use black and light at the same time. So we start working on that. And after that, for sure, we come back to the film's references using, for us, The Shining was one of the most important reference, because there is people inside in a house, in a hotel, in that case, and to me, it was very important to say, maybe La Llorona, it wasn't there. Maybe it was just a psychological problem coming from the guilt of the family, and they imagine all that. But and there's another very interesting thing. When I call Maria Mercedes Coroy and Maria Telon, who are wonderful Mayan actors, and I tell her, I was very sad in a way, because I told her, I'm so sorry, I have a role for you, and it's a maid, and it's a so big cliche. But and I tell them, but you have to understand that in Guatemala, people say that a good maid is a good that you cannot feel, that they are just there, and they are
Almost
just
furniture.
there.
It's like
It's
part
like
of the house.
But a very useful furniture. And so it's a ghost. And I told her it's perfect. The analogy is perfect to represent how people watch the indigenous people, how people mix in Guatemala is watching indigenous people. And they told me, don't worry, it's perfect, and we want to do that. And so we start looking for how, in reality, how they can have the power of the house, and how the house are more them than from the owner, because the owner have a lot of appearances to play, and in a way, for the image, painting was very important. For the characters, reality was very important, and for the sound, I decided to start working with my sound designer from the beginning of the script. And we had 1,100 extras in the film. Who I prefer to say that
100,000? No, how many?
100,000.
100.
No,
Oh, 1,100.
1,100. Sorry.
Yeah, because I was like, I think 100,000. It's a little bit too much. Okay, 1,100. It's a lot. It's a lot.
1,100.
You can see it in the credits. You can see the amount of people you had.
And I prefer to call them support actors, because they was more an actor than an extra, and they was there to make the sound, and they was there working for a lot of things for sound more than for image. And it's very important, because that people, they are not extras, so I mean there is not a casting for them. These people coming from all the association who still looking for their disparate relatives people, and they are continue defending human rights. And so
and I'd like to bring the fact, we have only like 5 minutes left, and I want to touch on a couple of other things, because we can see Rigoberta Menchú. I mean, for if the audience have been keen, and they you can recognize her. And I think it's interesting to hear very quickly the story of why Rigoberta is in the scene of the trial. And I want to touch really quickly on these veils that they wear while they are giving testimony. So you have to be very quick, because I know the audience has a lot of questions, and unfortunately we don't have them, but okay, we'll try to touch them all.
I called Rigoberta when I started writing the script, and I asked her to be my advisor. And I wanted, and I had to be very careful about not unrespect the people who live that tragedy. And she told me, you have to invite the soul of the disparate people to work with you. And we made a sacred fire to invite that people. And we really feel that people working with us. And after that, I asked her, do you want to be part of the film? I think it can be very interesting to have you in the same seat that you was during the real process. And she told me, for sure, I will be there.
Because one thing we have haven't said, or you haven't said, is that this is like based on a real
Yeah, exactly.
trial. You know, the names are different, and you know the circumstances, but it's based really on a trial that this man or many men face. And what about the veil that they are wearing, which is haunting, and it's part of the poster of the film, at least in the US, and it's yeah, again, it's a powerful message, especially of what happens afterwards.
It was a kind of a free interpretation about the traditional outfit, because when that group of women came to the court to give their part of life in the period of the war, they came with that sute. In Maya, we call sute the veil. But it's a very, very strong veil. So, and I wanted to watch that kind of face because they are so strong. So I decided to look for another thing. And I was thinking about La Llorona, like, because La Llorona is not just Maria Mercedes Coroy. All the women in my film are La Llorona.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say La Llorona is a kind of a divinity, a kind of a Guadalupe Virgin. So I was looking for, made a kind of a virgin and a kind of a sacred image with that women that to me, they have all my respect and my admiration.
And it's interesting what you're saying, you know, and in a way, and I love the fact that you know, it might not be the objective, but there is such an empowerment of all the women in that, you know, and it starts from a very different kind of situation, you know, with the opening scene, and then, you know, what happens at the end. Very quickly, could you tell us a little bit more about the languages that we hear during the film? Because I know there are 2 different dialects, and you mentioned, you touched at the beginning that there are more than 80.
23 indigenous languages.
23. Okay.
And so we use Ixil, who is the ethnia who lived the worst part of the war in Guatemala. And I use Kachkel because I grew up with the Kachkel ethnia, so I'm really close to that language, and I love that. And I really don't have opportunity to talk that, maybe because I don't look for that, because, you know, it's part of the discrimination. So if people who talk Mayan languages, they prefer even to talk Spanish, to don't be discriminated, a little bit like Latinos in USA lived. And so I'm always trying to put Kachikal in my films. But to come back a little bit just for a sentence about the women in my films, and to me it was so important, the analyze about the fact that when you are watching what is happening in reality with that kind of massacres, are only women looking for their people, only women looking for justice. Why men are not interested for that? And so women deserve a kind of a homage because they are doing a very good job.
We will have to leave it at that. We know that you have to leave. I mean, we could talk for hours, but I like this idea of making an homage to the women who fight for human rights and everybody's rights all over the world as we speak. Jayro, thank you so much. Maybe I don't know if you have like a last thing that you want to tell the Palm Springs Film Society members who have just watched the film and this Q&A. This is your opportunity.
Oh, thank you. No, I just want to say thank you. And thank you to the effort to understand my English.
and we hope to see you very soon in Palm Springs again. Thank you. Good luck. And we're going to root for for La Llorona to be one of the selected films for the Oscars and the Golden Globes, because it's in many lists and it's higher up in the list. So we have a lot of hope for that. Thank you, Jayro Bustamante, and thank you everybody who did this beautiful film.
Bye-bye. Thank you.